Welcome to Upper Pylon 2. Our mission is to provide you with an in-depth review of every episode of Deep Space Nine in the order they were broadcast. Tonight's episode is Our Man Bashir, and this is Chris in South Carolina.
And this is Blair from Ontario, Canada.
This is Matt in Buffalo.
And this is Hanson. Let me try that again without the frog in my voice. And this is Hanson, Matt Hanson in Arizona. And you are cleared for docking. Thank you so much for joining us for this very, very fun episode. I can't wait to talk about this one because we're doing Our Man Bashir this week. I am a huge James Bond fan, and this is such a love letter to the fans of that franchise. And there were so many callbacks and references and nods in this episode that I just can't wait to talk about, at least with Chris, who's my fellow Bond fan on here. But I can't wait to talk about this episode with you guys because it was just so much fun for me to watch. So without further ado, let's move on to Our Man Bashir, the synopsis. In our most audacious encounter with the holodeck mishaps, our crew gets stuck in the patterns buffers of a true political gambit. One man is suave, lethal, and cool enough to keep them alive. Bashir, Julian Bashir. This is the 10th episode of Season 4 of Deep Space Nine and the 80th episode overall. It first aired on November 27th, 1995. Teleplay by Ronald D. Moore, story by Bob Gillen, and it was directed by Winrick Colby. Guest stars this week include Kenneth Marshall as Lieutenant Eddington, Andrew Robinson as Garrick, Max Grodenchik as Rom, Marcy Brickhouse as Mona Lovesitt, Melissa Young as Caprice, and unnamed actresses as go-go dancers. So, Chris, whenever you're ready, take us into Our Man Bashir.
Oh, I'm ready. All right, the glass breaks and a familiar-ish stinger hits as Julian Bashir, in full tuxedo, straightens his suit. I don't know what I was trying to write there. And instead of her eyes, he sees the reflection in his bottle of booze, and he pops the cork right into an unwilling assailant's face. He makes out with said woman until Garrick arrives to sully his fun and run off his gal. They chat a bit about privacy, and then Bashir accepts this sidekick with some trepidation as we break to opening credits. Man, I can't believe they got away with these music stingers.
They kind of didn't, because I mean I looked in the history or the memory alpha notes of this episode, and MGM was none too pleased with them after this.
It was absolutely a Vanilla Ice situation here. Like it was doon 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 all over again.
But can I first of all, aside from the music, which I almost it was, Chris, it came dangerously close to hitting the Bond theme a couple of times. But I love the music design for this week, especially when we get the Bond-esque riffs of the Deep Space Nine theme that we get later. It's just fantastic. And here at the beginning, I mean, Chris, I guess you and I are going to be mostly catching these references tonight, but the whole bottle with the reflection thing, it's totally the opening of Goldfinger.
Goldfinger, yeah, in her eyes. I kind of tried to make reference to it, but I put Eats. E-T-E-S. Anyway. Yeah.
And of course, he has like I forget what he says, but he has the perfect Connery-esque line that he says right after he knocks that guy out with the champagne, like he couldn't handle his alcohol or something like that, some pithy line.
Yeah, he uncorked on that guy for sure.
I do have a question though. You speak of this Bond character. Not really sure who this Bond character is. I just thought we were dealing with Austin Powers. That's to me that is the icon in this entire.
This came first because Austin Powers was 1997. This is 1995.
I know, but still.
And if they were mad at this, which was like lovingly like trying to exude Bond, man, I can't imagine how just rage-filled they were over Austin Powers, because that's just a straight rip. And
I also read that this came out. This came out at the perfect time too, because this came out 4 days after GoldenEye premiered, and that was the big return of Bond in the 90s.
Totally coincidentally, I'm sure.
No, absolutely not. They even admitted that they wanted to get some of the hype from the movie crossover. But I mean,
and I will say it wasn't just the Bond music riffs that they were getting really close with. When they get to the casino, the song playing in the background, I don't know if you guys heard it, but the song was almost but legally distinct from Heat Wave by Martha and the
Vandellas.
Vandellas. Yeah. I mean, it was just like, ooh, it's just starting up. That's Heat Wave, and then it stops. And then, Heat Wave's back, and then it stops.
Yeah, I did notice that. I was like, they're trying to do some Motown stuff.
Yeah.
But keep it nondescript. But I mean, I'm into this opening. This is like, I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm into this whole episode. I may be one of the only ones here, but because this episode I know is very divisive and split among fans, but this is right up my wheelhouse.
I'm obviously all on board as a huge Bond super nerd. Read the books, love the movies. Yeah. I listen to podcasts about James Bond.
Yeah, me too. As a man who dropped what was it? I dropped almost $200 to get that huge Bond 25 Bond 50th anniversary Blu-ray set.
Like just for the record.
I know, but like I bought it when it was new.
Well, I was a little trepidatious about this just because we have so many of the holodeck is malfunctioning TNG episodes. It's a joke inside the series that I was like a little hesitant going into this. And I think we can talk about it later, but I think where Deep Space Nine excels with these is where there are no stakes. They're just going to have a fun time in the holodeck. The only problem where this is a little bumpy is just the MacGuffin that you have to buy to accept the story. But since it's just like transparently so goofy to just have this fun, it's like I don't really have a problem with it, but I just don't really need the goofy stakes of it. Just like go in there and have a baseball game. I like that aspect. We're just having fun.
I think the stakes work for me, and we'll talk more when we get there, but because I'm such a huge Bond fan and because I love some of those early like Connery Bonds where, some of the what's at stake is truly ridiculous. The fact that it's so over the top and is so much in the spirit of those films, I went with this whole silly, getting rid of all the land masses in the world plot, because it's so Blofeld-esque, and I'll talk about it when we get to that point. But I think Avery Brooks truly missed his calling as a Bond villain in those 60s and 70s movies, because I freaking love what he does with it. But we'll get to that.
Chris will quickly get into it, but because the MacGuffin is so damn silly, I don't know how you can really fault it that much. You just know what this episode's trying to do, so it's like,
and it's not trying to
roll with it.
And it's not really trying to pull the wool over your eyes. It's doing this tongue firmly in cheek. So, I mean, how mad can you get at it, really?
And I think that it uses it for a purpose, and we'll get into that later on in the episode towards the end. But there is an underlying character purpose here that they're building towards, and I think they found a cool way to do it and still have fun. So, we'll get there.
But I think before you move on there, Chris, I just wanted to add though, if you don't know who James Bond is, and I'll be honest, my kids were watching this with me, I had to explain who James Bond was. Granted, they are younger and they haven't seen any Bond films, so to them the stakes were real. They didn't catch any of the subtleties or any of the realities that we saw as more mature viewers, that all this was in good fun. And I had to explain, and I focused more on Bashir wanting to be a secret spy and how Garrick is a secret spy, but they had no clue about the James Bond and who he was. But they are very, they're a lot younger than we are.
Yeah, and
it's probably a good thing that your young girls don't know much about James Bond at this point.
Well, see, that's my question is, well, Chris, this is totally off topic and probably will come out of the episode, but Chris, when did you get into Bond? Because I got into Bond. How old are your girls, Blair?
They are 9 and almost 11.
See,
so they could be, because I know when I was that age, I was a boy too.
I was, because like I got a Nintendo 64 for Christmas when I was 7, and I had that. Yeah. That's my introduction, was the GoldenEye game, the multiplayer game, and that's when I found out it was a movie, I saw the movie and fell in love with the series. Chris, when did you get into it?
My stepdad was super into it, and he came around our house around when I was 8 or 9, and I would sit and watch them with him, and never really watched all of them at that point. Got GoldenEye, super into that, watched the Pierce Brosnan movies, liked those a lot. And then I got really, really into Bond when I was about 22, when I watched them all for myself straight through. So
Right.
that's the full story of my bondhood.
Which one was the one where they were skiing? That was my first.
They
There's,
split
there's
a few
several.
of them, but-
Yeah.
Oh, and he gets into a submarine at the end.
That's
He's
A View to a
skiing
Kill.
That's the first one I recall seeing. So.
But did your daughters enjoy this episode though, Blair?
Oh, they absolutely loved it.
Actually,
but they
Fly Who Love Me is the one you're talking about, Blair.
No, View to a Kill because he
View to a Kill is the one he
Oh.
ends up in the
submarine.
at the beginning, but he said at the end they ended up in a submarine.
No. I mean, from the
At
skiing.
the end of the
From the skiing. Okay, View to a Kill.
There are several Bond movies where he's skiing
Submarines
and
and
submarines.
Yeah.
But my girls did enjoy it because they thought it was they were into the whole spy thing, how they were going to get out of it. I remember the one comment when Bashir's assistant came in, and they were obviously focusing on certain aspects of her, and they made a comment on that, and that was very amusing. And he's like, is this spy all he's into is women? So I had a good chuckle with that. So,
But I think that's kind of a mark of a well-executed episode if it's incredibly transparently, so much to the point of it being legally interesting, a reference to something so specific that even if you don't know what they're referencing, it still can be entertaining. I think that means it's a pretty well told and executed story if you're not even in on the joke and it still is working for you.
Yeah. It was good. They thoroughly enjoyed the episode, and they kept asking, "Aren't the safeties on the holodeck on?" So I had a good chuckle.
They're
too.
never on.
They're never on.
That's exactly what I had to say to them, right? But they know enough about Trek now that they're starting to get certain things and ask certain questions about why they can't do this or why they can't do that. So, and I liked how, my daughter said, "Well, why don't they just open up the door and either walk out or get some people to help?" And they thoroughly explained that reason too. So I was happy with that. But it was good because my kids were asking the questions. But as you said, Smonsky, they thoroughly enjoyed the episode based on the presentation to their level. So it was good.
We're talking about this episode as a whole, and we just barely have gotten through the teaser. So take us past the opening credits there, Chris.
I'd be glad to, sir. We return, and we're in Kowloon, quite a ways from Paris. Mona loves it, named for her mother, I'm sure. Greets them, and Bashir offers Garrick a drink. Garrick is intrigued by all the guns, booze, and intrigue. I just realized that was terrible writing. Sorry, folks.
And she's somehow, I like how they do it because it's so fun and it fits in, but she's way more scantily dressed than Moneypenny ever was. And that's clearly what this character is supposed to be.
I nearly fell off the treadmill while watching this episode because of her entrance. I'll run without my glasses on, and the TV's in front of me. I had to lean forward when she came in to get a better look, and I nearly ate it coming off the treadmill.
Rightfully so. Yeah, hound dog. We're brought back into the real world with most of our command crew rolling about in a runabout. They've been sabotaged, and as Eddington is attempting to get them out of there, they energize just as the ship goes kaboom, which ends Act 1. Anybody got anything to say so far? I have one thing to say, Smonsky.
You go ahead, Chris.
Sorry. I got one thing to say, Smonsky. Would the ship actually veer and stop as though it was a dirt bike in the middle of space if they didn't hit reverse thrusters or anything?
No, it would continue on at its
that's what I thought.
current speed for forever, essentially. So yeah, they hit the rear bikes on the dirt bike and kicked it out.
Sorry. Anyway, sorry, Blair. Go ahead. That was.
I will say one of the joys I had. Oh, sorry, Blair. Were you going to say something? I totally stopped.
Just my obligatory. Outside of Bashir and Odo, the entire senior staff stuck on a runabout. Did they even explain what they were coming back from? Because if they did, I totally missed it because I was just thoroughly shaking my head again.
Some conference with the Cardassians regarding the Klingon conflict.
Yeah. Whatever. At least Eddington was in charge of the station, so I was okay with that. So
shouldn't Eddington have been for a big conference with security or something with the Klingon? Shouldn't Eddington have been there? Or a single representative of the security staff?
Probably.
Whatever.
But you need your Bajoran first officer there. You need your science officer there for some reason, and your chief engineer of the station.
Well, the
there.
Science officer is understandable. She knows the Klingons, and that's why Worf is coming along.
Okay, true. O'Brien, no need.
Yeah, O'Brien is the odd one, but we need to get O'Brien into the simulation somehow.
Yeah. True.
Because I would rather see him be a part of this thing than if he wasn't, he would be the one doing Eddington's job, and it's actually a nice way to get Rom to shine and finally start his arc.
Well, I'm not disagreeing how it ended up. I thought it was beautiful how all the characters were utilized in this episode, especially Eddington and Rom. I just have to point it out because it is my obligatory dance. So
you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And what does work fabulously, and what I like about this opening scene, and really throughout the whole episode, but it's one thing for me to love Julian Bashir engaging in this Bond-esque world. I love the fact that they were able to include Garrick into it, so Garrick can offer his sarcastic, wry commentary on 1960s spy life versus what he knows from the Obsidian Order. It's so amazing, and I love. We always love Andrew Robinson, but I love him in this episode particularly.
Yeah, I love him too. Anybody else got anything before we move into Act 2? Nope. Here we go. We're brought back into the real world. We come back. We come back from a break and find out that our command crew are stuck in the pattern buffers and they can't stay there for long. Eddington and Odo attempt to troubleshoot the issue and shut down the station's main power. The computer seems to have saved them, but no one is really sure where. And we're back in Bashir's fantasy, which is strangely still running. And Bashir and Garrick are about to set off on their adventure when Julian's bar suddenly begins to spin around in what will be our very first clip.
Julian, I must have fallen asleep.
Very funny. Who else did you invite along with you today?
Well, this wasn't my idea, Major.
Colonel, actually. Colonel Anastasia Komonanov, KGB. Oh, Julian, I never thought I'd see you alive again.
Komonanov. Love her to death. And after some sly but not very subtle references to The Spy Who Loved Me, You Only Live Twice, and even A View to a Kill, we find out that someone has been actively causing earthquakes all across the globe, and that our command crew is stuck in the holosuite program, but they aren't quite themselves. Odo and Eddington confirm this situation, and they tell Bashir that he has to keep the program running and not let anyone die. Dun, dun, dun. We have our plot.
Okay, I have to go through this because this kind of episode compels me to. So, View to a Kill I get because of the whole on the mountain thing. Spy Who Loved Me, you're saying that the fact that she's KGB and she's working with him?
Yeah, absolutely. Komonanov is totally a ripoff of
Amasova, yeah. And what was the other one you referenced?
No, I can't remember. You Only Live Twice.
And how did you figure that in?
The submarine. A lot of submarine stuff and the stinger of that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Anyway. Anyway. Go ahead.
No, Matt looked like he had something to say.
I didn't, but I can say.
Oh, okay.
As soon as Kira shows up in a Russian accent, I'm like, all right, we have a fantasy holodeck episode where we have some body swap, more or less. Which actor is now bored and wants to show that they can sing? So which one ends up having to sing in this episode out of character? I mean, that always seems to happen, right? And it's always very weird and kind of cringy to me that they get bored with their characters after 4 years and want to stretch their wings a little bit and show off some talents. And so
I don't see this
as
talents. I don't see this as stretching. I see this as bad Russian accent, just like every James Bond bad Russian accent. So I'm not mad at it.
It reminds me of what's her name from Russia with Love, the love interest, Tatiana. That Russian accent.
So she has this crazy over the top Russian accent. Cool beans, I'll roll with it. So what? Michael Dorn just wasn't up for doing a French accent this week.
Yeah, he wasn't quite the chief.
Would you want to hear him do a French accent?
Yes,
In
I
those
would love to see a horrible French accented Klingon.
I am not a Frenchman.
He did look good in that white suit. And was that a character from James Bond, a white-suited villain at any point? Or
There's
is that
a whole bunch of white
There were-
suited
okay.
villains.
It's
They're
been a
always
while.
skiing. They're always in a
Always
slum.
in-
There's
yeah,
always a white. There's always a bald villain.
There's always.
All right.
I'm so glad. There's always a casino scene. We got one of those later.
And the coat that
Dax?
Cisco is
Oh,
wearing.
Cisco, yes.
There's generally a female doctor somewhere.
If there was only a way they could have worked in Cisco stroking a bald vole,
Cat.
Yeah.
we need to get him.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
They dress him in pretty much the identical thing to both. And
Dr. Noah.
Blofeld.
Yeah.
but we'll call out these
Name.
references as we go along. So
What about Austin Power references? Are they allowed to be thrown in here too?
All Austin Powers references are just James Bond references. It's just straight rip.
I know.
Come on, man.
especially that first movie. Yeah.
Well, then the second and third one are just the same references as the first
Exactly
one.
the same. Yeah.
All we needed was a fat bastard in this episode, and we would have been good, right?
Then we get O'Brien.
Oh, you're.
I say this as someone who's overweight myself. So I love you, Colin Meaney.
At least go with Morin or something. Jeez.
Was
No,
more
that
in this
would've-
one? I don't think I saw him.
No, he wasn't. But that would have been amusing. In a kilt.
Why wouldn't he be there somehow? Anyway, Honey Bear, aka Dax, may be the first one in trouble. As they head out to get her, they run into a now awakened and slightly altered Falcon. He stupidly allows one more kiss, and Bashir manages to knock out all the baddies. Meanwhile, Garrick lays some truth on Bashir, and Kamenanov gives us some plot for the holonovel as we head into our next clip.
Honey Bear is still better than Merry Christmas.
We can't kill him.
Her name wasn't Mary.
Been trying to kill
Was it?
I don't think so.
Dismiss your
I
ideas.
thought it was Merry Christmas.
And smiles.
No, as you
I think Merry Christmas was like the stinger funny line.
Was it?
And without the house.
I think her name was actually Dr. Christmas Jones or
Oh,
something.
that you're talking about.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it was Christmas Jones. Yeah.
Stop treating this
I'm
like
sad Christmas only comes once a year.
Christmas only comes once a year.
Lives have to make hard choices. You want to save lives? Fine. But you will not have the luxury of saving everyone.
who is that?
Eventually, you may have to let someone die.
We come back with Rom, Eddington, Odo, and Quark searching through the holosuite computer system. They find that the physical forms are there, but the neural information isn't. Where could it be? Quark comes up with this. Maybe it's everywhere else on the station. We have to find out how we're going to get them back. So we head back in with Bashir, and we're visiting Lashif with braids. He's the gatekeeper for the main baddie, Noah. 5 million francs is the asking price, and Bashir plans to baccarat the hell out of Duchamp for that money.
Yeah.
So we head back.
Well, I mean, a bunch of I like how O'Brien's character is pretty much the bad guy from Thunderball with the eye patch and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we have our obligatory Baccarat scene, which very happy that that's here.
Yep. Glad it's not Texas Hold'em.
No, it's not Texas Hold'em. Yeah. So, continue.
All right.
Well, hold on. Before we go on,
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
the trying to wring a little bit of tension out of these episodes is always tricky because it's not a series where they're going to kill people off. I thought a pretty interesting way was having Garrick there, bringing up the possibility of like,
Yes.
well, to get 3 people to survive, we might have to kill off 2 or something like that. I thought that was about as effective a way as you're going to really get from these episodes of bringing in a bit more attention, because he's, kind of a numbers guy. He's just going to figure out, well, this is the greatest good we can get from, the least amount of harm, but let's get out of this. And I like that. Phil, combating against Bashir as the doctor looking to try and save everyone. And I'm like, it's about as good as they're going to get with trying to have some more stakes, have some tension in this.
Yeah, I love the place that goes to. I kind of chose the clips that I chose because they follow sort of a pattern, and they have Cisco acting crazy. But yeah, I wanted to highlight that Bashir Garrick thing, and that was the clip that I found that kind of boiled it down to its main point, and it'll blow up in a few scenes here. Mm-hmm. So we head back to the station for a little discussion, proving the theory about the memories. Rom explains how the technical specs work, and he offers to make some modifications to the Defiant to make it all work. Super Rom to the rescue.
Yeah, we should pause real quick and talk about that, because it's an important point, because by this point, his transfer to engineering happens this season. So I imagine that the writers, if they didn't know that they were already going to do that, they had an inkling that they were going to do that, because why else would you throw something like that in here?
Well, they laid the seed for it in Little Green Men, right?
True.
And so this is kind of a plant that's already beginning to grow out of that little confrontation, I feel like, with Quark.
And I also find in this episode too, if you're talking about laying seeds, this completely unseeded any conception or misconception you have of Eddington. At this point, I would fully 100% believe he's an onboard, complete Starfleet officer who, has no ill will. Not even if he, we know he's a Maquis guy, or Maquis at this point, but it serves him no purpose to kill off Cisco, because Cisco isn't really an enemy at this point to him. But this episode just further, solidified Eddington as a good character that made the Blind Side even more of a blind side when it came out. So I liked what they're doing with Eddington here.
And yet it didn't feel like it was inconsistent with what's happening here, because, as you say, there would be no tactical advantage for him to kill off the senior crew at this point, because then he would just be discovered.
Mm-hmm.
And he really doesn't do a whole lot except for say, okay, yeah, go ahead and do that.
But he's in command, though, and I like that, though.
You're right.
Yeah, you're right. He's not doing a lot, but he's the guy who's making the final decisions. And as opposed to Odo making the final decisions, which I don't think would have been believable at all.
Well, I would have. See, this is where Eddington's just such kind of a weird character, in that he pops in and out, completely forgettable for a bit of a stretch here again, but they still do have to force his way in there to make him a relevant character for when he does flip. So it's a little jarring to see him back there, like, oh yeah, this guy is here. He's not just, gone off screen every couple episodes, but it is a little funny having him be there. I would completely buy Odo calling the shots in this one, though. If Eddington wasn't there, yeah, I'd totally buy into Odo. Why not?
I think we could do it that way, but I think it adds more to the intrigue that it is Eddington. That Starfleet's kind of in control of the station, and that's kind of,
Well, you say that seeing him there. I'm just saying, if he wasn't there, I don't think you're missing.
And I mean, really, they're both there, character. Right?
Well, yeah.
I couldn't tell whether one was more in control than the other, honestly. Like, thinking back on the episode, just never struck me. They were both working together. They were both doing the same sorts of things. I don't know. Anyway,
Rom was practically in charge.
Yeah, Rom practically took over control here in the middle.
True, but I mean, both at the beginning, though, both of them were pretty much giving out orders. So I mean,
yeah,
you could say that they were co-commanding the station,
which would make sense. Odo from the Bajoran side and Eddington from the Starfleet side. So it's kind of cool that they have a Starfleet person. It also kind of makes your argument, Blair, earlier, that hey, we have a security guy here, a Starfleet security guy, main head guy that could take over if Cisco and the whole command crew was to go kaput. Right, here's the guy.
Yeah,
he's here. So anyway, I mean, doesn't fully put it to rest, but definitely assuages it a little bit.
But yes, the original point was I do like Rom seeing coming out of his shell and becoming the engineering savant that he will be for the rest of the series.
I saw some crazy things in there when the modifications that he made, that spatula that he obviously mentioned. Like, there's just some crazy stuff hidden in that scene. It's pretty interesting.
And thank you for bringing up the Defiant as a solution, because also often they've established that like shuttlecraft have transporters and all that kind of thing. So when the Enterprise D would lose power, I would always be sitting there as a kid going, why don't you go to the shuttle bay? You have all these independent spaceships that have everything you need working in them. Why don't you use that as a solution? Rom was the one that thought of the Defiant as being an independent spaceship that has all this stuff. He's smarter than all the TNG writers.
Everybody.
All
of Starfleet. He's technically smarter than all of Starfleet in universe.
Get him on the show.
Get him on the writing room. In the writing room. We need Rom. Anyway, back to Bashir, who's winning at Baccarat, and he gets a cigar to his face for his troubles. If you think that's crazy sounding, go watch any James Bond movie and see how he gets taken out at random points.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we're one step away from a thrown hat.
Goldfinger. Anyway,
or you know what? It would have been perfect for Dorn if he wasn't gonna do the freaking French accent. Is just give him metal teeth, make him Jaws. He'd make a great Jaws.
Yeah.
Two on the nose for you.
They're going pretty obvious in this, but that might be the step too far.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, of course, Bashir wakes up in Dr. No style in this lap of luxury, and they meet Hippocrates Noah as we head out of Act 3.
I loved Garrick, like the first hotel or the apartment that they're in, the Bashir's, when he's making fun of the 60s
aesthetic
decor and saying how tacky and bad it was. But he makes fun of this evil lair, which was quite tasteful, I thought, which was equally funny that he just hates all this human aesthetic, all of it. It's all awful.
But it's all equally ridiculous too. I mean, because like it's on the top of Mount Everest, and
well, sure.
He's talking more like the wood grain and the birds, the like floral paintings behind him, and anyway.
Well, the first apartment is very 1965. Whatever. Yeah.
I wish I could live in it.
Sure. But then the next one's like a very, potentially British estate kind of thing. Yeah, sure. It's 25,000 feet up into the Himalayas, but Garrick doesn't necessarily know that. He's just waking up in quite a nice, tasteful place, but still hates it.
It's too bad it wasn't in a volcano.
Well, we'll get there. So Hippocrates Noah quickly reveals his entire plan a la Goldfinger in what will be our next clip.
And Avery Brooks doing the best James Bond villain monologue yet.
Thank you, Mr. Dusha.
Addicted to Bashir.
Wait,
Going to try rematerializing their patterns.
did you put these out of order?
Understood.
Yeah, you have two things labeled as clip 3. That comes later. I think this is it.
I believe in an orderly world.
There we go.
A far cry from the chaos we find ourselves in today. We are building a new future here. A new beginning for mankind. A new chapter in human history. Open right here on my island. Forgive me. Sometimes I do get ahead of myself. Allow me to explain.
We're almost ready. I programmed the laser sequence, and I'm making some last-minute adjustments to a South American site.
I do have every confidence.
I'll finish off this scene and then
She's working, Visi.
we can talk about this whole plan.
Not only do I intend to create a new future, I intend to create a new world. At each one of these points, I have hidden a new form of laser, one that can penetrate the Earth's crust down into the mantle itself. The global earthquakes, those were only tests. Soon, I will all of these lasers together, and when I do, produce worldwide earthquakes the like we have never felt before.
Killing everyone on the planet.
Is this the first stack scene that we see her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Damaged by
I just had a comment about that. So.
Not only kill the termites, but demolish the house and build again.
So the goal is much like that of Moonraker, hitting a giant reset button on the world and restarting with only the best of the best.
Well, with a little bit of View to a Kill mixed in because they're flooding a portion of the Earth, except it happens to be the whole Earth this time instead of just Silicon Valley.
I'm going to argue lasers, best of the best. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I would agree on the View to Kill. However, I always forget about a View to a Kill because
most people should.
Grace Jones. Yeah.
Oh, she's the only good thing about that movie. What are you talking about?
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it. No, I love her music. I think she's fine.
I mean, I'm not even that big of a fan of her music. I'm just saying in a film that's generally awful, she's one of the bright spots along with Walken.
Walken's terrible. We'll move on. We won't get lost on that. So what did you guys think of the plan, man? The lasers.
I mean, it's wonderfully 60s.
It's sufficiently goofy.
It sounds like most of Blofeld's plots. So,
Yep.
Well, yeah, the plot's just goofy, but I got to say, the sets in this episode were all quite good.
Yeah.
And especially the final layer here, when the whole wall goes up, and it's a practical effect, I think. I'm like, wow, that's legitimately impressive with a cool, the big goofy map with just 5 big red dots on them. Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's straight out of Goldfinger too, with he presses the button and the whole floor scoots back, and
this diorama.
All it is a giant diorama that like a kid would make, of a field with
Fort
Knox in the middle of it, and for no reason. He's just like, I'm going to talk about this now. This Fort Knox thing that we could just see in a picture.
And it also flips around. It flips around again to like release gas or something.
Yep. Anyway, it's so great and silly.
But I think one of the closest times they've got close to copyright is the fact that this guy is Dr. Noah. It's one syllable away from Dr. No.
And he's wearing the Nehru jacket and he's doing the whole thing. Like, yeah, it's definitely.
I mean, I was just waiting for Cisco to say that he was a member of Spectre.
They're apparently going to try and do a whole bunch of these type of episodes and have this be probably a yearly reoccurring episode that they can pencil in. Not surprising that they got a sternly worded letter from the Broccoli family to knock that S off.
Oh, come on, man. It's definitely under the parody law. Give me a break.
It should be under parody law. And, they were trying to relaunch the series at that point with GoldenEye and the new Pierce Brosnan ones. It would have just been free cross publicity for them.
I thought they got one more in.
They do, yeah. And I mentioned it at the end. Please don't bring it up. Just kidding.
But they dial it back a lot, I think.
It's much more subtle.
And can I point out here that I thought Dax was quite attractive in that sexy librarian style, the glasses.
That's got to be another. Yeah, that's got to be another Moonraker thing because in Moonraker, the girl is the scientist that's working for him at first, but she doesn't know it.
Mm-hmm. She looks good in glasses.
And her name is complete homage to actually the first Bond girl. The first Bond girl was Honey Rider.
Honey Rider, yeah.
This is Honey Bear. So,
which Bare is how it's spelled. Apparently, when I looked it up, I was like, "That's awesome."
Yep. Well, I mean,
that's amazing.
This is the same series that gave us Pussy Galore, so don't ever forget that.
Well, Star Trek didn't give us Pussy Galore.
I know, but what they're referencing did.
Yeah, and did you get my Plenty of Tool reference earlier, Hanson?
What was the Plenty of Tool reference?
When I said she was obviously named for her mother. Anyway.
Oh, that's right. No, named for your father, perhaps.
Yeah, I said named for her mother, I'm sure. Anyway,
okay, yeah.
I was riffing. Okay, anyway, let's keep going. We got done with Cisco Crazy Eyes Part 1. The goal.
Look at you, a Diamonds Are Forever reference. You do run deep in the Bond fandom.
Rom is nearly done with his modifications. He gives a time frame of an hour. So we return to Bashir being placed in a situation so harrowing to overcome that it seems he has absolutely no chance as we break to our final act. And oh, is it glorious when we return from that commercial break. The laser pointed directly at Julian Bond's balls, threatening to tear him in half, but just in time, he seduces Honey Bear, and she helps him break free, and he destroys the bad guy's plan entirely. And I know I'm playing fast and loose with the details.
Yeah, so I want to roll back my one comment earlier regarding Blair's kids' enjoyment of this. This is the one part of the episode where if you're not in on the joke, this is potentially, you might read it as being offensive and stupid, and that he just, when he says Blowfield just wants you for your mind, like, oh boy, I could see how somebody would read that completely wrong if you're not in on the joke.
I was thinking the exact same thing, but you know what? Just be grateful, and Chris can back me up on this. Be grateful they didn't go the full Goldfinger route, because that would have been even less pleasant to see.
Man. It's super unpleasant. I wish that they would recut that film without that scene. Anyway, I
love that movie, but that scene always bothers me.
I could do without that scene.
But this is just like that moment in Little Green Men, where it's like a little bit of a commentary on older fashion portrayal of women in fiction. And it works well if you're with it. But if you're not, it could come off as totally very weird. But they hit it perfectly, I think.
Yes. No, it was the right amount of homage to the 60s sensibilities without being completely insulting.
And it helps that they have Garrick there going, what in the hell are you doing? That kind of thing. He's 100%. Just quiet. You know what? I follow my lead on this one.
I like that. I love the fact he's like, really? You're going to seduce her, or whatever term he used, and he's just rolling his eyes. I really thought he played a really good role, just standing back and watching his facial expressions and his little one-line comments.
Well, see, I think he's thrown in there for like the people who maybe don't have the highest opinion of some of those older Bond films, because he's just like the audience, like, really, this is so dumb. Why are we even doing this? Why are you bothering seducing this chick? Why don't we just kill everybody?
I'd give you two some privacy if I could.
That was great. I love how, so Garrick is just awesome, and if you want to throw in a Bond reference to who he would be, he's Bashir's Felix Leiter.
Definitely Felix Leiter, yeah.
Yeah.
Did I not mention that earlier? I guess I did.
No,
in my mind, I thought about it. Oh, you know what? It was in my synopsis originally, but then it got deleted.
Oh, okay. But he's basically Felix.
Yeah, that's certainly, and will be from here on out. Anyway, Bashir has to traverse the caverns of Mount Everest, and so he and Garrick begin their long trek. And they begin to argue about the nature of what's actually going on. And this argument turns into Garrick threatening to tumble this entire house of cards and allow everyone to die just so he can escape. So Bashir shoots him in the neck, which delights Garrick, and they move on.
I like how that wins him over, right?
It's a great scene.
I like the headcanon of Bashir just missed, and he was trying to
kill him, yeah.
Kill Garrick, but he just plays it remarkably smoothly at the end. Like, oh, well, that's very fortunate. Here, keep a straight face. Yeah, that's what I meant to do.
Here's a question. How many times do you think Bashir has been on the Bond practice range shooting? Like, because that's a scene in some of the books that Bond goes and he actually has to shoot, and like they scientifically test his accuracy to see if he's still on spy duty and can go out in the field and all that.
We saw that all in Skyfall.
Well, we saw it in Skyfall, but it's definitely in the books too. And so you got to imagine like Bashir has been playing some of these Holland novels where he goes and does that, right? So I wonder if it was all fake. Anyway, that's just me head doodling.
Also, he has like a one-shot gun. Garrick could just bum rush him. It's over. He got his one shot off. He could just leave now again. What are you going to do?
That gun's got 3 shots in it. At least 3 shots.
I don't know. It came out of a shoe. So
still probably got about 3 shots.
It's a freaking zip gun. They're one shots, I think. I don't know. Some nerd might correct me on that one, but
I am no gun nerd. I like guns. I like to go shooting occasionally, but No gun nerd here. But I'm pretty sure you can get off at least 3 shots out of that. Anyway, where were we? Shoots him in the neck. Blair, you got anything to say about the shooting of the neck or the big argument?
What a neck to shoot him in, too. I mean, there's a lot of space there.
Neck.
And
Oh, Blair's empty. He's talking. We got nothing.
Well, you know what? I do want to talk about one more Bond reference before we move into the climax. Chris, I don't know if you probably did, but like the fact that either Kamananoff or Honey Bear is going to die. You know how in Bond films, every time there's more than one Bond girl in a film, one of them has to die.
Well, I won't say that. I think that there are some where they don't have to die. Like some of my favorite, License to Kill, some of those other ones.
But you know what I mean. Generally, they die.
But but there are a lot where they do die, and so that would totally be a trope of this whole thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Is it a little weird?
Oh, sorry.
Well, is it a little weird that he has this adventure game where at the end of a lot of Bond movies, he ends up sleeping with the girl that he saves at the end? Is it a little weird that you have a holodeck simulation? It's a action role-playing adventure with possibly the option for full holodeck sex weirdness at the end? Or is that an add-on pack?
I feel like all the holodeck things are going to end in some way like that, right? Like what? Think about all Janeway's holodeck things, like her 16 ones, the holo.
Can we not think about Janeway's holodeck stuff?
she might be a special case. That was a long, lonely journey.
Just for that.
But what I'm saying is she liked the most boring crap.
Think about Barclay. This is a thing that's been in the holodeck for a long time. I think definitely people use it for that purpose.
Let's be perfectly honest. If the holodeck were a thing today, we would all use it for that purpose.
Well,
yeah, but do you need like a good 2.5 hour bang shoot 'em up?
Wouldn't that be fun though?
Wait a minute, you're asking me if I did a 2-hour adventure where I get to shoot people and have sex? Who doesn't need that?
I would argue you have the sex first, and then you go shoot people afterwards.
I think that Bond usually does it multiple times in a movie, like 3 times in a movie. So you imagine Bashir in his 2.5 hour, 3 hour adventure is probably at the beginning starting with some, at the end ending with some, and somewhere in the middle.
I can't believe you're asking this question.
I'm getting old. That sounds exhausting.
How does he get any work done around the station is my question, if he's on these adventures for... Yeah.
Hey, this is like we're on a 4-hour shift. It's a 4-shift day. He has some downtime. I mean,
to be fair, this is a movie convention. It's definitely not. The books are way more realistic with Bond's love.
Maybe. Yeah, but you never
also
know.
Much more of an asshole in the books.
Yeah, he is much more mature. in the books.
Bashir could walk into the room with his lady friend, and then it could fade to black, and then the scene automatically switches, and he's on to the next. Phase of the mission or the
he could skip right over the sex stuff, definitely.
I mean, they go black and white.
I'm just throwing it out there as an option. All of a sudden it fades to black and no.
Or it fades to black and that's what he wanted.
Yeah,
but, this is all neither here nor there.
Matt, I don't know if you're just getting old or if you're married, but
little column A, little column B.
But this is a holodeck program that I'd be down for.
Gotta say, since I've hit 30, it's definitely slowed down a little bit. Moving on. Blair, you got anything to say about this scene? Getting shot in the neck.
Yeah, we were talking about getting shot in the neck.
Yeah, no, I'm just surprised the bullet didn't ricochet off his ridges and bounce back and shoot Bashir himself. But anyways, let's just move on.
Ridges are full.
Let's get to Avery Brooks. Avery Brooksing it up in the best possible way.
We will. They bust into Noah's room just as he's about to activate the final button of doom, and Bashir is told by Eddington that he will be ready in about 2 minutes. Bashir stalls in what will be our final clip.
Thank you, Mr. Duchamp.
Eddington to Bashir. Going to try rematerializing their patterns in about 2 minutes.
Understood. And what is it you understand, Mr. Bashir? That you should have killed me when you had the chance. I agree. But then again, I suppose it wouldn't be very heroic. I, on the other hand, is about the idea of being a hero.
Wait. Maybe I'm tired of being a hero. Maybe I've thought over what you've said and decided that you're absolutely right.
About what?
Everything. The decadence of the world, the need for order. The more I think about it, the more I realize that your way may be the only way.
We have that isolated now. It's in the sound bites section of our file folders.
I think we should save it for like our bad joke sounder when someone makes a thud on the show.
Are Julian here, a man who has spent his entire life dedicated to fighting against.
Yes! But that's all about to end now, isn't it? You're going to destroy this world and start a new one. What's the use of me continuing to defend a doomed...
I'll just finish out the notes and we can geek out and then go to the end. If that's okay with everybody.
No. I'm an intelligence agent. And if there's any one thing I've learned, it is that there comes a point when the odds are against you and there is no reasonable course of action but to quit. How do you think I've managed to stay alive so long when all of my compatriots are dead? It is because I have known when to walk away.
So Bashir finishes out Garrick's argument from before, and Ram is finally ready. Bashir presses the button to end the world as they save the command crew, and Bashir wins by losing. And in the real world, O'Brien is unhappy about his ship, but Garrick and Julian grow closer, and Julian Bashir's secret agent will return in a simple investigation.
I love that they had managed to put that at the end of the episode.
It's great, yeah.
The fact, because, you know, for those who maybe don't remember or haven't seen a Bond film in a while, the end of every Bond film has the credit "James Bond will return."
Will return. Most, but yeah.
Or some version of it, yeah.
Haven't they stopped doing them in the recent ones?
No, it was at the end of Spectre.
Okay.
Well, wasn't it originally when they were going by the book, they would go, James Bond will return in, and they knew what the next book was, but now they don't necessarily know.
They knew what the next movie they were doing, yeah. So it's just...
Well, they were never doing them in book order, but they were always ready for production on the next one for a while, for a long time. But they
had
stopped
all
doing
the
that, I think, with...
They had...
Yeah, and License to Kill, I think, was the
last...
started the not having the next title.
Right. And ever since License to Kill, it's just been James Bond will return. But it's still there. It was at the end of Spectre a couple years back. So, you know, going back to the end with Cisco there, we often make fun of Avery Brooks whenever he's really over the top. It hurt his performance for us in something like Facets, but here I think it's pitch perfect. I mean, I don't know what you guys thought, especially you, Matt, since you're the one that usually like picks up on when he's doing too much of what he's doing.
No, this works perfectly because this is the rare instance where you simply cannot go over the top. Because at this point, we all know what the joke is. Well, you should. And it's just chew the scenery. Go nuts. You're the big villain in this over-the-top thing. You're not even playing your own character, so go for it. And it works really well. Now, we'll have to revisit this idea again when he's not necessarily playing himself in the old 1940s flashback episodes where he goes big again.
But it'll be real.
This is where it works. Yeah. It's real. Yeah. So this is where I have absolutely no problem with it, because when he does go big, at least it can be funny. So that doesn't necessarily work when it's like so big it's funny bad. You know, you laugh at that in like Facets or something. But in this, when he goes so big, it's goofy and fun. and it works here. So yeah, I'm not going to be criticizing him at all this time.
I think it's the same sense of fun he has when we get to season 5 and he's playing a Klingon.
Yeah, I mean that kind of works because you can't go too big as a Klingon either.
But yeah, Chris, if they ever if they ever remake Live and Let Die, I think they need to get Avery Brooks for the Yaphet Kotto part.
Kananga. Something. Yeah. I love the end of this. I love that Bashir floods the entire world. I love that that it fights convention, and then Garrick's like, "Hey, I'm going to come back. Let's do lunch again, but let's do it in the holosuites next time." I think that that's really kind of the heart of this, is that it was really a character assessment of where is Bashir at this point and what is his and Garrick's relationship, because we've kind of gotten away from that for a few episodes now. And it was a nice little reboot, reset, and a really cool way. We've talked about how season 4 is kind of a reboot, a soft reboot. We get the new music, we get a lot of the ideas kind of retread for us in different ways, and I think this is one of those really intriguing and cool ways of reestablishing that connection and establishing it in such a way that we really grasp the depth of their friendship. So it was really cool.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, there's not much that you can say about this climax other than the fact that it's very over the top and it bucks convention, but it wraps up very quickly, and it works for me. I don't think the episode overstays its welcome. Like that was our main issue with last week's episode, Sword of Kalis. At no point did I feel like for me this was dragging on or was focusing too much on one thing.
Well, it's because by the very structure and the joke of the episode is that you have these several beats that you have to hit with, mimicking a Bond movie, and they hit each one of them, kind of an appropriate joke, paced out nicely in all the acts. And then because you're copying something that's already paced out usually fairly well, it translates to a good episode. You have the establishment of these crazy over the top characters, some tension in the middle of a card game. Bond's captured, Bond wins. And it's like, there's your 4 acts right there. And there you go. Just put that on a screen, and how could it overstay its welcome? It's outlined right for you right there. So yeah, works out well.
And it's really well written too. I think it does play on the stuff. It does play with it. But Ronald D. Moore is,
a clever writer.
Oh man, he's really good. And I mean, every time we see him, he does cool things, and he's able to sew in so many little details that are just really well done and well written.
And he's really good, especially with now that he's off of TNG and no longer has the reins held on him by Rick Berman anymore, and he can start including references to other stuff and references to other Star Trek. Ronald Moore is probably my favorite Star Trek TV writer. So does that wrap it up as far as this episode's concerned? Does anyone have anything else before we move into final thoughts? Okay, let's move into final thoughts then. So we'll start with you, Blair. What did you think of Our Man Bashir, and what would you rate it out of 5 stars?
Well, I enjoyed this episode. I don't think I appreciated it as much as you guys did, just with as much as I've seen a lot of the older Bond movies many years ago. I haven't seen any of the newer ones, but I can still appreciate the writers and how they did this story. A lot of references in there. I enjoyed the episode. It was a lot of fun, and again, it was one of these episodes where we had the ensemble crew, and I find DS9 really does great episodes when everyone's involved. I love to see Eddington again. I thought the Bashir and Garrick relationship was fantastic. I love Garrick's responses to essentially what any non-Bond fan would just probably have the exact same reactions to if they didn't know what James Bond was. So it was really, really good. I still have to throw out that my obligatory, the whole command crew thing comment, but it was a way to get everyone in the story. So, I'll give it a pass here. So at the end of the day, again, not getting all the Bond references, like Chris clearly could name the movies where each of those references came from, I was still happy with this episode. So I will rate it 4.5 Austin Power movie references.
Son of a bitch.
And with that, Chris, why don't you go next?
Austin Powers is an abomination. Blair, I think the references are broad, and they're all from old school Bonds, so don't fear that you haven't seen the new ones. You don't have to see the new ones to love this episode, because they're all old, broad references to things. So we could probably list every single Bond movie title and say, oh, this points to that thing that happened in this, and this movie, because they are tropes at this point. And I think that this episode is perfection in a tux. I love the homage paid, no matter how ham-fisted it is. I love how they toy with the transporter episode format. I love how they extrapolate the Bashir and Garrick relationship through all of this. And we also get Rom just being awesome. And Eddington, he's back. Yay. This is, for me, an obvious 5 out of 5. Blazing Bashirs bashing bumbling bozos, a lot like Bond.
Thank you very much, Chris. Matt, why don't you go next?
Yeah, so I'm a much more casual Bond fan, so I get a lot of the references. I know what they're doing, and it's certainly fun. Where I'm going to say this episode does really well is that beyond all that, it has a very solid internal logic, I think. I mean, once you buy into that MacGuffin, that's goofy. I think we kind of all can acknowledge that. But once you're in there, you kind of think, well, why can't they go out the door? Well, they have an answer for that, and you just kind of keep going through all those things. And then at the end, you're like 2 seconds away from Bashir doing it. You kind of think, why doesn't he just flood the world? Who cares? Just go into it. There's no stakes in that regard. And then the episode follows through on that logic. And I really appreciate that it's not just some dumb, ham-fisted stuff to manipulate these things. That they're even if this episode is really goofy, and it is, they do have a little bit of a care to detail in there and have some smart writing buried into it. But I can't quite love this as much as Matt and Chris, because I'm not that crazy diehard fan that can reference all these movies specifically. They all just run together to me. So I'm giving it a very warm 4-star review. I like it a lot, but it's not quite in my wheelhouse as much as, say, like Little Green Men kind of would be with that reference, or like their film noir episodes. But this is definitely something you can appreciate, I think, and they execute it very well.
Thank you, Matt. And as for me, if people, could sit through all my Bond references, you probably would imagine that I love this episode. But I don't think you need to be a Bond fan necessarily or to love it. I think it stands on its own. At the very least, it is a unique take on the holodeck gone wrong episodes that plague TNG and Voyager. At least they're trying to do something a bit different with it. And the campy tone, I think all benefits from that. But if you are a Bond fan, like a fanatic like I am, or like Chris is, you're gonna love this episode. It's chock full of references. They point out the tropes and then twist them in fun, unique ways. The music, for God's sakes, it's all stylized the way that John Barry would have scored this episode. So I love it. It's a Bond fan's dream come true. And, I understand that it's not perfection per se. Like, I would never put this in an objective top 10 list of DS9. But from my subjective standpoint, it's getting a 5 because I love it. They my two of my favorite franchises crossed over. And that pretty much does it for our Man Bashir. So we are going to move on to our feedback section. Which one are we doing this week?
Should be Starship Down.
Starship Down. Okay.
Yep. I can take the lead.
All right.
So just do a clean entrance again there.
Yeah. So that wraps it up this week for our Man Bashir discussion. And now we're going to move on to your feedback from our episode on Starship Down. And Blair, why don't you kick us off there?
Sure. So Starship Down we get our first post from Kieran. And once again, Kieran writes a very insightful forum post here. And quite frankly, he backs up one of the points that I mentioned in the episode regarding Worf's command management style, or lack thereof. And similar to what I said, he did agree that, you know, his experience as head of security probably should have given him some experience in this matter. But that being said, he does concede that maybe dealing with engineers is a whole different ball of wax. But still, he does bring that point up. He also talks about the Kira and Cisco interaction throughout the episode, and you know, comments about you know, going to the baseball game, and I think it'd be really neat to go to a baseball game with Captain Cisco. I think, especially if you want to get to know someone, to share someone's passion and get involved with it is a good way to get a better understanding of people's where they're coming from. So again, as we said before, take a look on the forums, interact. We will respond to you and get some dialogue going. So thank you, Kieran, and keep writing in.
Yeah, we had another post by Braddix on the forums, and I liked the reference here to Cromwell's character of the alien that Quark negotiates with, saying he's equal parts Odo, Farmer Hoggett, and Danny Trejo. And I can only assume it's because of all of Cromwell's many and numerous and prominent Mexican jail tattoos. I mean, that must be where he got that connection from. But Braddix also brings up that he really liked the Little People episodes, if you will, and I think that might be really interesting. Perhaps Star Trek Discovery going forward may have a heavy dose of that. I mean, I very much welcome that, and breaking of format even at a bigger scale of more than just one-off episodes. And then I really like his last point, talking about the Worf's command skills and all that. We're seeing it's brought up. It was a big point of discussion in the show. But I think he kind of rightfully points out that if you really look at it, Worf probably wasn't all that bad in his commanding and request, because it's probably not that big of a stretch to want to have familiar controls there. And it is surprising, and Braggs rightfully points this out, that, okay, he's upset with the design layout of the controls, but he's perfectly fine with a one-off phaser shot. I could see Worf wanting more than just one little shot in that situation, but you know, these are some very good points, and thank you, Braddix. And yeah, I look forward to talking with anybody who has these comments, and I've been a lot more active on the UP2 Twitter account and having some good conversations on there with people about all sorts of random Star Trek stuff. So by all means, let's keep the communication two-way.
Yes, please do keep it two-way. And there are several ways that you can keep it two-way to contact us. You can send us an email at up2podcast@gmail.com. Leave a comment in our forums, and obviously we will read it on the air as at forum.trekmatefamily.com. You can follow us on Twitter at UP2podcast, and you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/upperpylon2. In addition to getting in touch with us, it would also be great if you left us 5-star reviews on iTunes. That gets the word out about the show and lets us know how we're doing. So if you would please leave a 5-star review on iTunes, we thank you very, very much. And you can reach all of us personally on Twitter as well. I am at mhansen0207, HANSEN, talking about Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, anything nerdy. Go there, we can chat.
I can be found at ProSub0, where there's a decent chance by the time you hear this, I'll be on Twitter freaking out being a parent any day now. So feel free to swing by there and give me some encouragement and talk me off the ledge.
And I can be found at Medic1849, where I can really just, I like to follow people, see what they're saying, and occasionally make the odd comment about hockey or soccer in Star Trek.
And I too am very boring on the Twitter, so I'm going to highlight this week fan of the show at Annie's UPS man. That's Les. He loves our show. He comments quite a bit, and he's also been on Tim Ford a few times. Great dude. Great follow. Follow that dude because he's hilarious.
Go Cowboys, I guess.
Yeah.
Go Tony Romo, right?
No. How dare you,
I know.
Blair?
I know.
So thank you so much for listening to this episode and indulging in my Bond fandom. And join us next week when we take a big shift from the very silly and tongue-in-cheek to the super serious with Homefront.
Oh, I can't wait.
One of my favorite episodes. This is Blair from Ontario, Canada. Until next time.
It's just that I'd rather die of drink than of thirst. This is Chris in South Carolina.
I'm Matt in Buffalo, and you can meet me at the karate rink later.
This is Matt from Arizona, closing hailing frequencies, keeping the British end up, and saying that those docking clamps are open and you are cleared for departure.
Keeping the British end up, huh?